why we are here today? What are we celebrating this February? Yes, go ahead. Black History Month, absolutely. The culture, the triumphs, the contribution, and recognize that Black history is American history, right? It's very, we celebrate this through the year, but February is especially very important, right? Because we are recognizing that we are all together in this nation. We have the distinct pleasure of having Mr. Clayton Mohammad here today. Welcome, sir. Mr. Mohammad is the Chief Communications and Equity Officer in the city of Aurora. He's representing the mayor. We also have a couple of guests here, Mr. Ji and Mr. Vishwaji from United for Peace. Thank you for joining us today. I'm not going to take too much time, but I'm going to have you come up and talk to us and give us a little more insight into the culture and, Black history.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good to see everyone. Namaste. It's
Namaste.
always good to be here with you again. I'm Clayton Mohammad, Senior Advisor to Mayor Irvin. He sends his greetings and his love. We love HSS Aurora and the work that you do in our community. So whenever we have the opportunity to join you, we certainly are going to make it a priority. It's February. As we close out Black History Month, we always take an opportunity to join with our neighbors, those who are Black and those who are not, to talk a bit about the contributions of Black people throughout the world, throughout America, throughout Aurora. I was born and raised in Aurora, to a single mom in the public housing projects on the east side of Aurora. And as I shared with the church earlier today when we were having their Black History celebration, although I grew up in a neighborhood that was extremely poor, mostly females, raising their families and single mothers, I was so blessed to be on the east side of Aurora because I had so many amazing examples who were Black people, professional, doing well. The superintendent of my school district, Dr. Charles Ponquinet, is a Black man. The principal of my high school, Dr. Jerome Roberts, a Black man. The principal of my elementary school, Mrs. Gwendolyn Miller, a Black woman. And so many educators that I had throughout my life were Black. And that's how I had the fortune to become a teacher. That's my undergraduate degree. I was a teacher, I was a principal. And about 10 years ago, I moved to City Hall as the communications chief for then Mayor Wisner and now Mayor Irvin, who he and I grew up together in the same housing projects. But my defining moment happened when I was in first grade. And my first grade teacher, named Miss Liz Hardy, for Christmas, she gave me a book called Black is Beautiful. And 6 years old, I used to flip through that pages of that book and I would see the things that they would depict. Black as a crow, beautiful. Black like a jelly bean, beautiful. Black like railroad tracks, beautiful. And at 6 years old, some of your ages, I began to love myself so much. And that's carried me forth for the next 43 plus years. And she's still in my life as of today. In fact, when I leave here, I'm gonna go see her for dinner, my first grade educator who gave me that foundation. And so now I get the privilege to be in the city's chief equity officer and really looking at how do we balance the playing field and how do we make certain everybody has a voice in our community. Many of you have attended our MLK events and other events at City Hall. You know we try to be as inclusive as possible. So last year I came and we talked about Black inventors. I just wanted you to see some of the everyday things that we use that were invented by Black people, showing you the contributions of African Americans to the culture of America, the culture of the world. But I realized over the last year, and as we prepared for Black History Month this year, oftentimes we talk about just the first Black person to do this feat, the first Black person to do that feat, and we really don't go beyond to show the connectedness that they are the first, but their goal is not to be the last. And so today, we're going to go really quickly through just some of the first who didn't want to be the last. And they passed the baton to show the unity of thought and the progress of people. And so for the young people, we're going to do a call and response. When I say he was the first, I want you to simply reply, but not the last. Or she was the first, and you reply, but not the last. All right? He was the first.
But not the last.
She was the first.
But she was the last.
We often talk about men like Dr. King, We know that he won the Nobel Peace Prize laureate. There were many black preachers before him, but he becomes the standard of black excellence in America. He was the first,
but not the last.
He opened the doors for men like Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's still alive in Chicago today. He opened the doors for men like Reverend Al Sharpton of New York, still alive doing amazing work in his state. He opened the doors for men like Bishop T.D. Jakes of Texas. It's one of the largest churches in America. And he opened the doors for women like Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts, the daughter of Bishop T.D. Jakes. So Dr. King laid a foundation of faith. And much like your faith, the faith of Black America, the faith of Black Aurora is extremely important. It keeps us connected. Dr. King was the first,
but not the last.
Not the last. We talk about men like Malcolm X. They're alive. Dr. King and Malcolm X had sometimes opposing views, but in reality, they certainly came together. Malcolm X was a lot more radical, a lot more in your face. But he opened the doors for men like Louis Farrakhan, who lives in Chicago today. He opened the doors for men like Fred Hampton in the Black Panther Party. He opened the doors for men like Stokely Carmichael in the Black Panther Party. While Dr. King was saying, let's have this nonviolent movement, Malcolm X and the Black Panthers were saying, hey, we understand you like nonviolence, but if you put violence on us, we're going to put violence right back on you because we have a right to defend ourselves. He opened the door for women like Tamika Mallory, who leads the Black Lives Matter movement for the last 6 or 7 years. Malcolm X was the first,
not the last.
He continued the movement. It's award season. So we have gone through the Oscars and we celebrate the SAG Awards and things like that. Hattie McDaniel, first Black person to win an Oscar. She was the first,
but not the last.
She opened the doors for people like Sidney Poitier, the first Black man to become the best actor in the Oscars. He opened the doors for women like Halle Berry, the first Black woman to win an Oscar. And they opened the doors for people like Viola Davis and Will Smith, Oscar winners. Sometimes we talk about Hattie McDaniel as if she was just out there by herself. But I believe that even back in the early 40s, she was hoping that when she broke through the barriers and won that award, that many others would come after her. She was the first,
but not the last.
We talk about women like Althea Gibson, the first Black person to win Wimbledon, tennis champion. She opened the door for men like Arthur Ashe, first Black man to win Wimbledon. They opened the door for women like Venus and Serena Williams. Some say Serena's the greatest athlete of all time. They opened the door for young stars like Naomi and Coco Gauff, who are out there playing their hardest today. And so although 60 years separate them, they're still connected because we're still making history every single day. Althea Gibson was the first,
but not the last.
And we continue to watch that happen over and over again. Della Reese, the first Black woman to have a nationally syndicated TV talk show. She was the first. You know some of the big talk show hosts. She opened the doors for women like Oprah Winfrey. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Oprah Winfrey. Yes. You open the doors for men like Arsenio Hall, late night talk show host. Open the doors for women like Wendy Williams. And open the doors for women like Tamron Hall, who has one of the top rated TV shows today. So although Della Reese was in the 1950s, breaking barriers, the glass ceiling for women and for Black people, she was the first,
but not the last.
Certainly not the last. This is Senator Hiram Revels, the first Black person elected to the United States Congress, the United States Senate. 1870, Mississippi, just 5 years out of slavery. He became the first Black man sent to Washington, D.C. He was the first,
but not the last.
Senator Revels opened doors for women like Senator Carol Moseley Braun from Chicago, the first Black woman to serve as senator. Senator Carol Moseley Braun opened doors for men like Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, represented now as one of our handful of black senators in America. They opened the doors for men like Congressman Jonathan Jackson. And if his name sounds familiar, because his father is the Reverend Jesse Jackson. You see, when you open doors, it opens doors for the next generation. And they open doors for women, like one of my best friends, our congresswoman of this area, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. And when she was elected to the United States Congress, she was the youngest ever female elected at 28 years old. All because of the foundation laid by Hiram Revels. He was the first, but not the last. And speaking of opening doors, he opened doors for women like Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm from Texas, the first black woman to serve in the United States Congress. But that wasn't enough for her. She wanted to prove that you could be anything you wanted to be because that's how her family raised her. And so she made her bid for the presidency of the United States of America, the first black person to ever make a bid for the presidency of the United States of America. She opened the doors for men like Jesse Jackson, who ran for president, and they opened the doors for our first black president of the United States of America. His name is President Barack Obama. Shirley Chisholm was the first, but she certainly was not the last. And although President Obama was the first black president, hopefully he is not the last. And we want to be able to see in that White House black people, Latinos, Indians, Asians. And we want to be able to break the glass ceiling and break the barriers and shatter the stereotypes. And right here in Aurora, in the early 1980s, this black man, Dr. Charles Ponquinet, became the first black superintendent of schools. He's my godfather. First black superintendent of schools in Aurora and in all of the western suburbs. He was the first,
but not the last.
He opened the doors for people like Dr. Jennifer Norrell, the current superintendent of East Aurora School District 131. He opened the doors for people like Dr. Adrian Talley. How many of you go to Indian Prairie School District 204? That's your superintendent, Dr. Talley, the first black person to serve as superintendent of Indian Prairie Schools. He opened the door for men like Dr. Michael Smith, the incoming superintendent of West Aurora School District 129. And he opened the doors for people like Dr. Andalib Kelgadi. How many of you go to Oswego School District 308? Anybody? There you go. That's your superintendent. And so Aurora has 6 public school districts here. We have 6 of them. There are these 4. There's Batavia, there's Cayman. And for the first time in the history of our city, because of men like Dr. Charles Ponquinet, 4 of our 6 school superintendents are black. That's history in the making. Dr. Charles Ponquinet was the first,
not the last.
And Dr. Norrell, Dr. Talley, Dr. Smith, Dr. Kelgadi, all of them will say, we hope that we are not the last either. And this woman, we call her the mother of Aurora, Mrs. Marie Wilkinson. She moved here in the early 1930s from Louisiana, started her new family in Aurora. And when she got here, she realized all of the injustices were happening. And so she began to become a civil rights fighter. She was the first black person to file a suit against a restaurant in the Illinois appellate courts for discrimination. She went on to work with Dr. King, raised $12,000 for him to get out of jail. One of her closest friends was Mrs. Rosa Parks. And Mrs. Wilkinson, if you go to the Aurora Public Library, her statue sits outside of the front doors. I sat at her feet for many years before she passed away. And even there in the hospital when she died about 10 years ago at 101 years old, we're there holding her hand and she's still talking, passing on the knowledge, saying, keep on keeping on. Make sure you teach the young people what they should do and what they shouldn't do. She was the first,
but not the last.
She opened the doors for men like Bishop William Bonner. Started a church here 80 years ago, Mount Olive Church of God in Christ. He was pastor there for 72 years before he passed away. She opened the doors for men like Henry Cowherd. Have you ever heard of Cowherd Middle School? It's named after him, the first black man to be elected to the East Aurora School Board. She opened the doors for women like Alderwoman Shakita Hart Burns. And I know those of you who've been to our council meetings, you know the Alderwoman well. She passed away unexpectedly last June, and we miss her tremendously. But she was the first black person elected to the Aurora City Council. She was the first, but not the last. And this young man was appointed to fill her seat on the City Council, making him the youngest member of the Aurora City Council, Ward 7 Alderman Brandon Tolliver, all because of the work of women like Mrs. Wilkinson. And look at what Alderwoman Hart Burns did when she opened the doors as the first black person to serve on the Aurora City Council. She was the first,
but not the last.
And who did she open the doors for? The man who 7 years ago became the first black mayor of our city, Mayor Richard C. Irvin. And you know how much he loves HSS. And Mayor Irvin, born and raised on the east side of Aurora, much like myself, to a single mom. Some of his family members went to gangs and went to drugs, but he went to the Army. And it was during his experience in the Army that he decided he would live a life of service, and he came back home. And he went to college, and he got his law degree, and he opened up his law practice, and he ran for alderman at large. And then he ran, not once, not twice, but 3 times for mayor. And on his 3rd time, he made it, showing that you should never, ever give up. And Mayor Irvin this morning was at a church, and he was explaining how it's important for him to be the first, but not the last. And he makes sure that he's opening doors for the next generation of black leaders. And inside of City Hall, he's made certain to put in position other representation of the black community in key positions. He was the first,
but not the last.
We have our Aurora Police Chief, Keith Cross. We have our Chief Information Officer that keeps technology connected in Aurora, Mike Piggies. We have our Chief Human Resources Officer. She hires everybody that comes through City Hall, Alicia Lewis. And of the 4 of the mayor's black chiefs, I round out the 4th as a senior advisor to the mayor and as Chief Engagement Officer, Chief Equity Officer, working with different cultures and different groups to make certain that everybody can be a part of the one Aurora story. Mayor Irvin was the first,
but not the last.
And it's important that we pass on the baton to the next generation of leaders. And just Friday night, the Aurora African American Heritage Advisory Board hosted their annual Heritage Dinner, honoring many people, but these 2 young emerging leaders of Aurora. And they followed in the footsteps of women like Marie Wilkinson and men like Charles Ponquinet and women like Alderwoman Hart Burns and men like Mayor Irvin, young Joshua Hunter, the senior at Aurora University, majoring in criminal justice, going on to become an attorney. He and his mom opened a store in Montgomery, and his mom unfortunately passed away in 2022. So he's been navigating life alone for the last 1.5 years as he goes through college. But not only is he on the dean's list and on the honor roll, he's continuing on to law school. He started his own nonprofit called the Butterfly Effect in honor of his mother, providing scholarships to young people who want to open their own business. That's Joshua Hunter. Or there's young business entrepreneurs like Jada Samuels, who at 17 years old started her own juice company, Jada Juices. And she travels around and working with schools in the Chicagoland area to make certain fresh juices are available to students, particularly in our low-income areas. They both received the Mayor's Emerging Leaders Award because Black history is our Black future. And with them, the future is definitely bright. And so, my friends here today at HSS, just wanted to come today to talk about those, certainly, who were the first. And we could go on for an hour to talk about those who were the first. But it serves no purpose if they were just the first and didn't open doors for others. And that only doesn't apply to the Black community, it applies to the Indian community, the Latino community, the Asian community, actually the world community. Because we can all make pathways and become first. We can all open new doors for ourselves. But history teaches us that to open those doors for ourselves mean nothing. We must open them for the next generation. And every one of you young people here today, understand that you're never too young to have an impact. I know elementary students who are having an impact in the community right here in this room. Middle school students having an impact in the community right here in this room. High school students here having an impact in this community right here in this room. And the fact that you come here every Sunday to connect with your culture and your families and your friends says a lot about where you're going to take your leadership in the future. And so although February we celebrate Black History Month, really it's 365 days a year. You should be proud of who you are. And on August 15th, we'll all gather together to raise the Indian flag. And we're very proud of India's independence. But beyond August 15th, the other 364 days of the year, you know who you are and how you represent your parents and your community and the organization HSS. So Black history is important to me as a Black child and grown up to be a Black man. And it's important to me to pass it on to those of different cultures and different generations. And the same it is for you. So whatever it is you want to do, take the lessons of Black leaders and make certain that you don't give up. Make certain that you know it can be done no matter what. Remember, you may be the first,
but not the last.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you. Black community? Well, a couple of ways. I think when you look at the slide of the mayor's team, myself, him, Mr. Piggies, Keith Cross, we were all born and raised in Aurora. We're all Black boys raised by single moms in Aurora. So part of the impact, I believe, is won by staying here. That we could have taken our careers and moved in any other city. That probably would have been more lucrative, in all honesty. But we made a conscious commitment to stay in Aurora, to build and serve here. Number one, I think that's an impact. Two, we made a commitment to serve in a workforce of government, where we could have gone to the private sector, to the business community, and probably made a lot more money. But our commitment was to work in the community as well. Me personally, I have a mentoring program called Boys to Men. It's 21 years old this year. We really work with Black and brown young men to shadow stereotypes, overcome obstacles, and break barriers. So I want to tell these young Black and Indian and Latino young men who are in our program that no matter what your background is, you can become whatever it is you want to become. And now when you have the Aurora City Council, there's 12 members on the council. There are 2 young men on the council. Our first ward alderman, Alderman Emmanuel Llamas, young Latino, and our Ward 7 alderman, Alderman Brandon Tolliver, African American. Both of them came through my mentoring program when they were growing up. And so for me, it's I'm very proud to watch them now in leadership, although they're my bosses now, but to watch them in leadership is amazing. So that's a little bit, I think, about my personal impact in the role. Thanks for your question. So, hard work. Those are the 2 things that carry you through. Education and hard work. Guaranteed. Those are the game changers. You know, you get your education, you focus, and you work hard. I promise you can break barriers no matter what. But when it comes to us, those cultures, those of us who are Black and are brown and who can't hide our skin tone, who can't hide our names, who can't hide our accents, and we understand that the world will make judgment because of that, this is where you really, become so true to who you are. Understanding who you are, loving who you are, loving your culture so much, and never, ever dimming your light around others. Be proud of who you are. And here at HSS, at school, in the community. And then finally, be of service. Every great person, as Dr. King said, anybody can be great because everybody can serve. Become a person of service. Find something to do that gives back to the community. Find someone to help lift them up. Find an organization or an opportunity. And I know you all do it all the time. You have a food drive. You have your street, a dedication. All of those things that you do as a group. Continue to do that as you move through elementary, middle, high school, college, and beyond, and become a person of service. And I guarantee that you'll go on to achieve great leadership. Hard work, education, self-love, and service. Those 4 together, will help you shadow stereotypes and break barriers. Thank you.
Oh.
Any other questions, Ross? Yes.
Thank you, Clayton, for everything. Question I had was just like how you came here to present Black history and how it looks in the future. Is there a platform or a podium that we can come and present to the same community? There is that synergy that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, is there a good opportunity that any community can come to other communities, particularly the Black community? Yes. Aurora has a number of cultural advisory boards. We have the African American Advisory Board, the Hispanic Advisory Board, the Indian Advisory Board. Individually, these groups do their own activities. But very seldom do we collectively, very seldom do we collectively come together to interchange and to bring cultures together to learn. More than just eating or having a great time, but to learn. So yes, there are those opportunities. I'm a liaison for the African American Heritage Board. So any opportunity that any community wants to come to present, we will certainly gather a group of Black leaders together to do so. And really speaking on behalf of the Hispanic Heritage Board as well, there's always those opportunities. Of course, there's always City Council that you can come and share. You do a couple times a year, the great work that you do. But for us to really be authentically, culturally connected, I think we need opportunities like this on a weekend, somewhere off-site where we can come together and share culture. I'm just so open to help providing that platform through all of this.
Thank you. Om.
Thank you, Clayton, as always, very insightful information. We also have our Seva Lead youth volunteers. Some of them participated today. So just wanted to welcome them and point that out because as you know, Seva and HSSB are like sister organizations and we have a lot of synergies back and forth. Speaking of synergy, I just wanted to mention that. And I know the City of Aurora has done, a lot of ways to recognize their work and we really appreciate it as well. Thank you.
We'll do more. The more we can do, let us know.
Can I invite you up here to just give a token of appreciation? It's a small token of appreciation. It's the History of Our Culture in America, the book about American weather.
Thank you.
Can I also invite Boazji up here? We just want to recognize you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, everyone.